Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Chris, and today we are going to be finishing up the front corner of the city right down here. So we've been working a lot in this section of the city, like this half of it. The other half has received some attention, but definitely not as much as this side has. And with that being said, I think it's finally time that we come and we finish this section today, because this 16 by 16 square here is pretty much empty. And so I want to go in, I want to add a buffer here. I want to redo all this, and I want to add a bunch of foliage right through here and then all the way down the side. So that's what we're going to do today. So let's just jump right in. All right, so the first thing to do is to just kind of recap on what exactly is going on here. And so the tracks here are not on the typical Penlug standard. They are, as opposed to 2 studs away from the edge of the base plate, they are 6. And because of that, then I have to kind of make this look a little bit different. And so the ballast is not on this side of the base plate here. It's actually on the other base plate that sits next to it. And then so you can kind of see that there. But because of that, the old train engine shed is in a proper spot. And then this can be a straight shot all the way down without having to worry about S-curves or anything like that, and then I can just get switch tracks, and then that will all just work well. And so with that, we need to rip up this whole section, and we need to add the ballast on this side, and then once we get the Trix Brix tracks, then we can add that switch in, and then we can add the buffer back here, and then we can remodel this section and try to figure out how exactly this is all going to look. All right, so step 1 is to pretty much just get rid of the green space that was already here. And so I'm just going to rip this up, and then we can figure out how exactly this is going to look once we put it back. I'm not super concerned about that right now. I'm mostly just trying to get in here so I can continue the ballast and then try and figure out how exactly this is going to work. Because I like this little pond here, but I don't know if that's going to be able to stay, just because of the limited space that we're going to have over here. But it's definitely worth a shot. And so with that being said, I think I'm just going to rip all this up here and then probably just put it in a pile off to the side. And then hopefully by the end of the video, we'll be able to come back and use it, or at least most of it. And so I think that is the plan as of right now. So I'm going to get the camera out of the way. I'm going to grab a couple brick separators because these plates do not want to come up. And so I'm just going to clean all this up right now. Step 2 is to add this little section of ballast in. And I purposely made it short so that we can first figure out how the buffer is going to look over here. And then we can kind of just go from there. But now that actually looks like a proper ballast instead of looking like that. So you put these up next to each other and it actually looks pretty good. And so with that being said, we are ready to move on to step 3, which is adding the buffer in and then trying to figure out how exactly that's all going to work. So the buffers that I used to use in my Lego layouts were these. Now I used to make these because I had all of these pieces in my inventory already, so I didn't have to buy anything and I didn't have to worry about another parts list for another project. And then so that was that. These look okay. They serve their purpose, but they are not perfect, obviously. They're kind of boring. However, with that being said, the buffers that we're going to be using in today's video are these. This design here is from the old train engine shed designed by Maria, so huge shout out to her. This design is really, really fantastic. I literally just ripped this up from the base plate that the engine shed is on, because we had to redo the siding over there. But now's the day we are going to be reusing this. So I'm really, really excited about that. So I'm going to take this off of the little module here, and then we are going to get some dark gray plate, and then we are going to figure out how exactly it's going to look over here, because I haven't figured that out yet. So I think it's finally time that we figure that out right now. Okay, so this is what it's looking like so far. It was surprisingly a lot more complicated than I initially thought, because of the fact that these tracks here have an interlocking portion. That's why these tracks connect together, and that's why 25 years ago, these tracks used to be able to have a current running through them for 9-volt trains. So the tracks here, they overlap with the plate next to it just a little bit. And so with that being said, I had to go through and lower this plate. but I also had to shift it over one because of the base plate seam, and I wanted to keep that separate. The only thing connecting these two base plates together is actually this 1x4 right here. So then now it is free to move, and then I can just put the 1x4 plate back, and then that is all good to go if it wants to work. But that is pretty much the general premise of where I'm at right now. I don't love this gap down here, but there's not a lot I can do about it. So I think I'm just going to leave it for the time being and maybe add a couple quarter round tiles in there. But for the most part, that is pretty much that. So with that being said, I think we're just going to go ahead and grab a couple more quarter round tiles because that actually looks like it fits. And then we are going to start adding the green plate around, and then hopefully we can start to figure out what exactly is going to go here. All right, so I went ahead and I put green plate across this entire base plate now. So pretty much this whole area is good to go, which is really, really good. And I also went ahead and I finished up this side right here. I just need to smooth out this corner a little bit more, which shouldn't be too bad. All I need, it looks like, is just a 2x3 and then maybe like a 1x2 or something like that. So that's not so bad. And with that being said, this area is looking pretty good as well. It's a little uniform here, but I don't think that's the end of the world. I think that looks fine. And so with all of this being done now, what I actually want to do is I want to add a couple of smaller plates on top just to give it a little bit of height variation. Nothing crazy. This is right at the front corner of the city, so obviously, and it's also a really small space. So obviously there's not going to be a mountain here or anything, but just a little bit of height elevation, a little bit of difference here by maybe like one plate or two plates at the most. And then we can go in and we can add foliage on it. So then the foliage actually looks like it's different heights and things, despite the fact that they're all the same piece. So that is where I'm currently at. And so I think this is looking pretty good. So with that being said, let me go and grab that one missing 1x3 plate. I think this would look better in dark gray instead of green. I didn't want to try it because then I would never be able to get it out. So I'm thinking dark gray would look a little bit better there as opposed to the green. So we're going to roll with that. And then once I get those plates down, then we'll be good to go to add the foliage and see what this looks like once it's done. And so now it is time for the foliage. I went ahead and I added a couple of smaller plates on the top just to give it a little bit of variation, like I said. But for the foliage, most of what we are going to be using is the fern pieces right here. Now, this is just a small handful of the ones that I have. My Lego store thankfully had a bunch on the Pick-a-Brick wall, so I have quite the number. I have a very large bag of them, and so that is what we are going to be using in this section here. And pretty much all I'm going to be doing is just staggering them and then kind of going from there. And then we can take this and then just place it down, and that is pretty much that. And we're going to just line this entire section with ferns, and then we're also going to go in and add a couple different other types of foliage as well. But I want to get this down first. I'm going to use this as the base layer, and then we're going to kind of go from there. All right, so I started building these little assemblies together, and then I realized just how many this actually was and how long this was taking me. So I figured I'd time-lapse it for you guys just to show you how long this is actually taking. In total, the time-lapse itself was probably about 30 minutes, and then another 30 minutes was for the assemblies that I had already done before the time-lapse started. So that's kind of where I'm at with this. I think it's going to be worth it, though. I think this is going to look really good. It is a lot of work and a lot of these oddly shaped pieces, but I think it's going to work really, really good. And as you can see now, the pieces or little assemblies are all getting placed along the side here. And I think this is looking really, really good. And I am extremely happy with this. This is just the first layer. Like I said, we're going to go in and we're going to add details in between each of these assemblies. So that's what we're going to do right now. All right, so this is what it looks like here. And as you can see, I think this looks really, really good, especially when you get that low angle and you can kind of see all the way down there. I think that looks awesome. I think that's really, really cool. Now, what you'll notice in some of the spots here is that there's a gap along the edge of the table. That was twofold. One, because I don't want to knock into them when I'm standing here. And two, because I want to actually talk about that second point, which is if I walk over this way a little bit, you'll see that there's some gaps in between the ferns and the track and then between each other as well. That's intentional. That is because I want to add in, I'm thinking I want to just add a bunch of these assemblies in, or possibly even, so I'm thinking this, or possibly even something like this. I don't know if the olive green would look all that great, But it's definitely worth a shot. We can definitely try it out here. And either way, one of the two of these will make it. Definitely these to a certain extent, because I want to also add flowers as well. Maybe some wildflowers going along the edge here. But with that being said, I think we are going to start doing that right now. We're going to do a little test sample, I think, first, and then we're going to see how it looks. Hopefully it looks really good, because if it doesn't, then I don't know what I'm going to do. All right, so I got a little carried away, and I said I was going to do a little test sample, but I actually went ahead and I added these grass stem pieces all throughout the ferns here, and I also tried using the olive green pieces, but I don't think these looked that great. I wanted this to be a little bit more vibrant, a little bit more lush, and so decided to go with the regular green and then the dark green studs with the hole in them. And then in the open spaces here, I can take the green flower pieces, and then because I have a lot of them now, and so I can go in and I can fill in the gaps. But I think this looks really, really good. If you take a step back here, you can start to see just how full this looks, especially if you come down to a lower angle as well. I think that looks really, really good. And the buffer just stands out so nicely there, and I think that looks great. And then so as you come down, you can see that it's pretty much the same thing at the corner, which is just the ferns and then the grass stems in between. And then if you come down to here, this was a little test sample of the kind of wildflowers here with the yellow pieces here. I think that looks pretty good. And then coming all the way down here, you'll notice I kind of started to transition from mostly ferns over to mostly grass. And that was intentional. I wanted to kind of weed it out because I can't fit any ferns behind the engine shed here. So I wanted to kind of thin them out and then kind of transition into smaller things that would fit over there. Because if I have this assembly on the edge of the base plate, I'm going to hit it and it's going to knock over every single time and it's going to drive me crazy. So I'm going to avoid that, but that's pretty much it for this area here. It's just a little bit of these grass pieces, and that is pretty much that there. And so I'm really, really happy with this. On that note, that is going to wrap up today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked it, make sure to like the video and subscribe, as well as click the bell notifications so you don't miss any future uploads. If you guys have any feedback for me on this front corner of the city, and if you have anything you want me to add to it, make sure to drop a comment down below to let me know what you think. But I have a new mess to clean up. But that's going to be it, like I said. And so seriously, once again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Bye for now.